I have all my passwords in front of me. They're all written down on this paper. I know what they are. Sometimes Apple forgets them and I have to create another one, but I know what they are.
Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from nearly half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponari of SciMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigmont of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. We also offer a weekly email newsletter which includes show notes for each episode. Learn more at commandcontrolpower.com. And thanks for listening. This episode of Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free and is made possible by our Patreon sponsors. You can help bring more commercial-free episodes by going to patreon.com/CMDCTRLPWR and supporting the show with a monthly pledge. Thank you for your support of Command Control Power.
Talking about ordering new iPhones. For myself and for my wife, I ordered new iPhone 13 Pros. This was on an AT&T promotion that I believe I told you about, Sam, where AT&T said, if you have an iPhone 11, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be a Pro or a Max or anything like that. Even a straight iPhone 11, we'll give you an iPhone 13 Pro. We'll give you $1,000 credit, which essentially pays for the iPhone 13 Pro with 128 gigs. It's like, wow, that's fabulous, right? You know, the way they do billing with these phone companies, it's like destined for the consumer to get completely confused by the way line items are in your itemized bill, especially if you've got a family and you've got a couple of devices in play. Like in our case, we have 4 phones and we've got an Apple Watch for myself. The way they shuffle around credits, it's just designed to confuse you. You know, they talk about how diabolical it can be when you buy a used car or something like that. These people are far worse. It's just designed for the error to go in their favor. When you do your trade-in, they charge you for 3 financed payments in advance. And then once they get the trade-in, they credit you back that. And then every month, instead of giving you this big $1,000 credit for the iPhone 13, they trickle that over a 24-month period. So so you're always being deducted, you know, I think it's around $27 or $28 that they charge you, and then they remove that $28 as a credit. But that is under the assumption that they get the phones and the phones check out and they're not cracked. So we had phones, they were in perfect condition. My mailer arrives from AT&T first. I do all the things you need to do, you know, turn off, find my iPhone and all that stuff and wipe the phone, reboot it. It's at the setup screen and I put it in an envelope and then this little cardboard box. And it's very clear that you're returning a phone. I mean, there's no mistaking that it's from AT&T and that's what's in there as it's traveling through the mail. So I record through the deliveries app my USPS number because that's how they send it back to their clearance place in Kentucky. I followed it through and it arrived successfully. We didn't get a mailer for my wife's phone. And so I called up. That was a big fiasco just to say like, hey, I need you to send me another prepaid mailer because we didn't get one. That took almost a full hour. And I think I had to make multiple phone calls. So finally, the first mailer arrives. And so I put her phone in, and during my talking to them, requesting another mailer, I had got this one rep on the phone, and he said, well, you know, you really should, before you send it out, take a picture of the phone, front and back, and take a picture of the actual box that it was sent in. And those were prophetic words, because I did indeed do that, track it in deliveries. It made it down to Kentucky, and then it disappeared.
Wow.
It just disappeared. I don't know how you guys have been in the pandemic, but we've had things like my wife has ordered stuff from Nordstrom. She doesn't order a lot from Nordstrom, but you know, when Nordstrom sends out stuff, it's pretty clearly marked packaging in a lot of cases. We've had stuff from Nordstrom disappear. So I don't know if there's a whole black market that operates within the US postal system. Conspiracy theorists chime in. So I called up AT&T. you can imagine the hours I spent on the phone. And finally, I get somebody after they offshore a lot of their customer support. I got somebody in the Philippines a number of times, finally get somebody who's US based. It's not that there's a problem talking with the people that are offshore, but you're just one more step removed from somebody in the United States who's capable of making a decision, making a decision like, you know what, this person sent out this thing in good faith. We didn't get it. We need to take care of this. We need to make good on this. So I finally get this rep on the phone and everything is escalated, and of course they're not calling, they're slacking somebody within their organization or some sort of chat component, and they're waiting for these answers back. So everything takes an inordinate amount of time. So finally this person says, and I've been on the phone for an hour, and she finally says, call us back on Monday. Wait a minute. Hold on. We've spent all this time on the phone and you're just telling me to call back. Oh, no. I've made all your notes in your account. No, I need some sort of a number. I need some sort of a record of our call. I need something. I need something to hold on to. I need your phone number. I need something. So she's like, oh, let me talk to my supervisor. Wait another 10 minutes. So finally, she gives up her own personal direct line. Hallelujah, right? So I wait the days that they said to wait, another 5 days, and I called her up this past Monday. And I won't give you the whole knockdown drag out, but I spent another hour on the phone. And finally she said, okay, it looks like the credits are going to go through. For your phone that we received is $27, and for your wife's it's $22 or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. I sent you back the identical phones for myself and my wife. Why is there a discrepancy? Oh, what did you send us back? You got to forgive me. I said, but we've spent days on the phone now together, and this is the same phone that we've been talking about. This is an iPhone 11 with 128 gigabytes that's in perfect condition, and I'll send you the photographs if you want them. I got the picture of the box. I got all this. She goes, no. We understand you did your part. It was lost. Blah, blah, blah. But she's not capable of making a decision. She has to slack somebody else who's like pulling all the puppet strings. So I spend another 20 minutes on the phone. And finally she comes back and she says, well, the way those deductions are, it's for an $800 value that we would give you over the next 24 months for your wife's iPhone. But we know we promised you $1,000. So we've credited your account instantly. She didn't say instantly, $200. Hang on. So I log into my account and I refresh the page, and all of a sudden the bill that was due came down $200. Wow. So there's somebody that she was in contact with who was capable of really doing anything. But what a frustrating episode of events. And I stayed very calm. And at the end of the call, I said to her, look, I really apologize if I seemed frustrated at some point, but you got to understand, this has been a horrible customer experience. This has been really, really bad. Poor folks who can't afford to stay on the phone for an hour, 2 hours, calling back, doing all these things, maybe not even tracking their phone, and then realizing 3 months down the road that the phone was never received.
Right. Yeah. Think of like you said, Jerry, think of the black market for that, because people who are in the know about these phones that are being sent back know that they're a phone going back to the carrier. I mean, it's pretty obvious, like you said. And if they know anything, they know it's been cleared of activation lock. So it's like the perfect theft.
That's really frustrating. Yeah, working with these companies, it reminds me also of even the warranties that they offer. All that kind of stuff. I mean, and sometimes the price seems competitive, but it's really just not the same as having Apple Care. You have Apple Care, you call Apple and you say, I don't want to get the runaround. I just want to send this back, and they'll just work with you. You know what I mean? Like it's just easy. Walk into a store. Whereas working with the phone carriers, you're like, okay, you have a problem with your phones. It's just not the same. It's really just never the same. And I think you're absolutely right that their stuff is all designed around like trying to get you to give up at some point, and not notice that you didn't get your money or stop trying to get your money, and
exactly.
And so it's just, yeah. And I'm sure, I hate to say it, but I bet the people that are making up these deals, the bean counters, as you might say, the people in the corporate offices, the actuarials, they are analyzing how many people will send us this thing, that we get the phone and somehow they don't get paid and nobody realizes, and that's just built into the equation. It's just the same, like they're probably going to not get some of the phones, and maybe you still will get the credit. So it's working against them as well, but they just work that all into the equation, and this is how they come up with these deals, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving hundreds of thousands of phones. Now, Sam, did you track the return of your phone?
I didn't actually. I did get my credit and they said it was okay, but I went through the same thing you did about the box though, Jerry. I didn't get mine, and they said, first they sent me an email saying you need to request your box, and then like within 10 minutes said, our mistake, that email went out to you, we're having a box sent to you automatically. So I'm like, okay. And then I still didn't get one for, what was it, like 10 days. And I reach out and I'm like, hey, you guys told me you're sending me this box. I had my phone wiped and ready to go. And they're like, oh, okay, here's the link to request a new box. I'm like, no, that wasn't my question. You said you were sending me a box, so now you're saying I got to request a new one. And so I was getting frustrated with them right away because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So your story kind of rang true to me, even though you had a much, much more frustrating time than I did.
What does the average person do? That's the big question. I feel bad for these people.
It's a good point that you brought up as well, Joe, and the fact that how many people are just not going to notice, not going to care, or just don't have the time to deal with it, and they're just going to make money on those deals. Anyway, switching gears for a little bit, obviously sticking with technology, I had a bit of good news, I thought, in an update from 1Password. So obviously, we're all users of 1Password, great app that I always recommend to my clients, even though I know we've talked, Jerry, about some of those clients that it would just be impossible to help them set it up because it would be too difficult for them. I love 1Password, and I've started to share some vaults with customers. And before it was all like our HCS vault, and then some customers had the app, so we started creating vaults that we could share with them. But then the one big thing that I've talked about, I think we all have at some point on the show, is sharing passwords securely with others. And, I had a pretty terrible rudimentary method of just texting it or calling them up and saying your password is. And that was just not really the best thing. And I looked into some features of sending passwords securely, and those services seemed too pricey for what I needed them for. Anyway, to make a long story short, 1Password recently updated their app to include the ability to share a password securely with someone even if they don't have 1Password. You can use the share button within 1Password, say I only want to share this with the recipient, meaning this email address or email addresses, include a secure link, which they would then click on. They would have them verify their email address by sending them a code to that address, and then it reveals the password to them. And I just used it today, and it worked wonderfully. And this is like a godsend for me, who always has a need to send passwords securely, and I didn't have a good way of doing it.
And it looks like you could set an expiration time too.
Right.
I didn't even know that existed. I mean, I knew you could share with someone who had a 1Password or within this people who were sharing a vault. I had no idea this was added.
This was like yesterday that this came out. Like, that's how new it is.
Yeah, I saw the announcement actually through Twitter. Do you guys ever get invited to one of these spaces? It's like happening live and people are talking about something. You ever seen that? Yeah, I don't know. It's on one of my Twitter accounts. I get a little alert, so-and-so is talking about 1Password. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So I click on it. And you're like listening into like essentially a live podcast, but it's not a podcast. They're not going to air it necessarily. And it's just people that are, that basically have a Twitter account. Some of whom are invited, just to speak about the topic, and other people are just like automatically getting alerts from Twitter, and other people are invited in and whatever.
So it's like Clubhouse.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like Clubhouse. Yep, exactly the same thing. And so, I just happened to tap on it and listen in, and that's my first, where I first heard about it, like 2 days ago. And then I got the email, and I read the blog and stuff yesterday. And yeah, I thought that it's a great feature because of the expiration. I did not realize that they make you double confirm. So basically, Sam, I think that what you described is you send a link to someone to reveal what the password is, to share a password with someone. That link then prompts them to receive confirmation of their email address, basically then be able to reveal the password, so that they can't just like have the link. They have to also have access to the person's email address. Yeah,
you could do anyone that has the link kind of a situation, like when you share from Dropbox, you can do that as well. But this obviously with this kind of data, I'd want to make it secure. So instead of doing that, you can say only to the specific email. And the reason why I knew that it worked is because I copied the link, sent it to her correct email address, but I had entered the email in 1Password incorrectly. So instead of first initial last name was just her first name. So I sent it to her to the correct email. She opened up the link, and when she tried to verify her email address, it said, "This is not the email that this was sent to." So by mistake, I actually tested the feature. When I sent it to the correct one, then she was prompted to enter her email address for confirmation. She received a 6-digit code that then she had to enter into the site to then finally reveal the password. It was super easy, she said. It was a piece of cake, but it was brilliant the way they did this, and I'm forever grateful for that feature.
One thing to look out for here with 1Password, just since we're on the subject, is I have a shared vault with my wife. If you are not paying attention and you drag something, let's say you updated a password, a key password that you want to share with your wife, let's say for the Amazon account or something like that, and you drag it into the shared vault, guess what? It drags it out of your personal vault. So you always have to make sure that you hold down the Option key.
That's a good point. Copy. I never did the drag. I always did the right click and then copy or move. But
that's a good idea.
But so you can drag. Well, I didn't know that. So that's actually a good point. So you don't lose it out of one vault.
Yeah, so it's duplicate, I guess, when you right click. I'm looking at it right now. I had always done the drag and drop thinking it's just going to automatically make a copy, because it almost seems like that's very Mac-like, right?
And the other thing about the 1Password password sharing feature, I think they call it PST. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's better written out. But anyway, that feature shares the password as it currently stands. So, it won't get updates. So like if you share with your client, you say that this expires in 7 days, they get it, they put in their email, they confirm, they reveal the password. If you've changed that password in your 1Password before they click through and reveal that password, it doesn't have any contact back with your 1Password app. In other words, it doesn't have the updated password. It has the password as it was the day you shared it with the client. It's just something to keep in mind.
Right. Because they don't have 1Password. It's not like a real-time sync or anything. It's just like, here it is as it stands right now.
I love that this exists now in 1Password, because this is the app we all already use, because these services existed, I think, like you said, online, Sam. You can just, share a password with somebody securely, but who trusts some random service, for exactly that type of information? So We're already trusting 1Password. So it's kind of perfect that they decided to build this in. I can't wait to start using this. Great tip.
Sam, could you just touch briefly on how you're using the vaults to share with clients?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we just usually had our internal vault, but then we came across a client. They're pretty tech savvy on their own as it stands. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we use 1Password." And they were like very well familiar with it. I'm like, "Oh, cool. We'd like to, collaborate with you on some of the technology passwords." And I said, "Okay, great." So I created a new vault inside my 1Password. I went in on the website of things to do this part. I created the new vault in 1Password. And then on the website is where I could put in a particular email address to share it with. So we put in people on that domain. We sent it over to them. The one trick was, though, you have to send them the invite. Then they have to accept the invite. And then I can share the vault with them. Right. And that was a little confusing, because I shared it with them. They said, "Hey, I accepted this. I'm in, but I don't see anything." And I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." And then I realized, Joe, you've known this because you do this before. I was like, oh, now I have to actually share the vault. So it's a secondary step only once they confirm.
Yeah, I think it's the same even like sharing among your team members, even when you're making their account. It is a weird system. I invited them and they accepted the invitation. Why isn't it implied that whatever action I want to take is safe? In other words, like, why do I have to wait for them to accept the invitation? I'm not going to know if it's really them accepting the invitation in the first place, So it's not like it helps, like, oh, it's, wait until they accept it and then share the thing, because it doesn't seem like it gets you any more security. So I've always wondered that as well. But yeah, that's an extra step where you have to be kind of standing by for them to accept the invitation, and then you can share whatever you want to share with them.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't build the chain of trust. Another link, it doesn't add another link to the chain of trust. It's just like adds another link of confusion to the chain of trust.
Right.
We all love this app, but this feature is just a brilliant addition to it that I'm super excited about.
Yep, and they're terrific to the Mac ACN community. If you are an ACN member and you don't know about this, you could reach out to Agile Bits and they will give you a free family account or corporate account.
I have a win for Daylite that I wanted to bring about. I know we've talked about Daylite periodically.
You're talking about DaylightMac.com?
beat me to it. I was just about to say that. Yeah, of course, I'm talking about daylightmac.com. Also affiliated with marketcircle.com. But yeah, so I have a win
Side point,
Daylite, a use case for storing emails. I am very big about this with my team. Whenever like a client doesn't respond to something important, or I feel like this might get some pushback, I always say, did you add that to Daylite? Did you add that email to Daylite? Which you can, of course, do using the Daylite add-on to Apple Mail. So I'm very big on this, and I push it all the time. And so I use it. But I have this one particular client that I've talked about before, that whenever it comes to money, they just disappear. You know, they ask questions, they do this, do that, and they pay monthly, they pay on time. That's not the issue. But whenever it's like, you need to upgrade this, or this is a security risk, silence. I mean, like crickets. So a year and a half ago, they were moving office space, and they had an internal old Mac Mini server. And that Mac Mini server had Rumpus that we were using as FTP to store voicemail and call recordings that they use from their old system. And obviously, some of that stuff needed an upgrade. So during the move, I said, listen, this Mac Mini is not really going to make it. I think it needs to be replaced. It doesn't have enough storage, yada, yada, yada. I said, the company that you use for phone also has a cloud storage service for a monthly fee. We don't want to hear anything about that. Yeah, I figured as much. Okay. So we can do a Synology. We can replace this Mac Mini, throw in a Synology, and we'll have a ton of storage, and it's great. Okay, send me the price, the quote. I sent it to him, nothing, just like silence. I get an email going with the client and phone provider. We work with them a lot. And I said, listen, you got to make a choice for HIPAA reasons and other things. You said you really needed call recordings and voicemail recordings, and you're not going to get that after the move. We tried a few times. They did on their end. We did on our end. And of course, it went nowhere, as it usually does. And I stopped getting any responses from them on this subject. So I just go ping, ping, ping. I'd start adding everything to Daylite. And come a year and a half later, the customer reaches out and you know where this is going. And they're just like, hey, we had a really important call and we need to get a recording of it. I'm like, oh, funny you should ask. I just looked back at my old emails because I had actually forgotten. We have our last response to you that says, and I looked it up via Daylite, that says this is what the cost will be for a new piece of hardware. We also copied the vendor. You guys never made a decision on it. No response. It's like the weirdest thing. Well, it's not weird. It's predictable is what it is. So they just decided the call recordings are not important to them apparently now. So I followed up once. For me, my saving grace was I had that documented and I had it somewhere where I could just recall it on the snap and be able to just put it in their face pretty quickly. But unbelievable by these guys,
Yeah.
So you're talking about daylightmac.com did this.
Not .org.com, correct.
Well, the thing about Daylite and what you're referring to is all you need to do is just like double click anywhere in the Daylite app on the client, and immediately you're brought to a slide out window that shows you all your activity. So if you're tracking these emails, it's not like you have to just open up Apple Mail and do searches for the client. Yes, you could do that, but that's going to maybe be a little bit easier in Monterey because now you could do tabbed browsing through the message viewer window in Monterey in Apple Mail, and I'm really looking forward to that. Made it really easy for you to see the mail chain of information that flowed back and forth with them, right, Sam?
Absolutely. And I'm glad for it. I mean, we have to protect our butt. We have a lot of good and trustworthy clients. I'm sure we all do. But we have those that, and I like them. Don't get me wrong. They make poor business decisions. And I just need to protect myself from them. And thankfully, this feature set, which, by the way, Jerry, talking about searching, I could not find this email in Apple Mail. The search function was just, oh, my God. So thankfully, Daylite was easy to capture. Just double click and I had it open in front of me.
Yeah, another company, marketcircle.com, that makes Daylite, also very generous with the ACN community for years and years. Daylite's been out forever, and they constantly improve on the product, and it's extremely robust cloud-based product. There's no locally based servers with Daylite anymore. If you're an ACN and you're listening to this and you want to kick the tires, just reach out to Market Circle and you could get your free copy. A great customer relationship management tool to use. It's designed for the small business in mind, not like Salesforce, which is designed for much, much larger organizations. A lot of times you're working with clients who might be struggling with eyesight issues, or just elderly clients, or maybe an app that you have on your own phone that's ridiculously small, and you'd like to make it just a little bit bigger in text size, but you don't want to have that universally across the phone. One of the things you can do to make a modification is you go into Control Center and you add this new option in Control Center, which is text size. I don't know, let's say you had the Reddit app on your phone. You tap Reddit and you bring it to the foreground for a moment, and then you go to your Control Center and you tap on the text size designation in the Control Center, and then it'll ask you what size you'd like to make the text. You could do it by app exclusively. It knows you're in Reddit, and then you say, do you want to make it larger in Reddit, or do you want to make it on all apps? So you can get there very, very quickly and customize on an app-by-app basis by just simply adding text size to Control Center.
Very cool. I have not upgraded yet on iOS 15. Jerry, you're always the canary in the coal mine. Everything else okay as far as Ring Central and acquired apps that we use every day?
You're talking about DaylightMac.com? Joe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, how's your Daylite going? Yeah, how are your referrals? I love what Apple does in that field. I think they're doing a lot with accessibility. They're already, I think, pretty far ahead of Android and other vendors. So I think these accessibility features really apply to anyone. It's not just people necessarily who in the past, may have been accommodated by these different accessibility options. It's really just for the general public these days. Everybody needs a little help in one area or another. So Apple's really been pretty front and center with that. And it's good to hear that they're getting even finer grained. That's a question certainly I've seen on the Mac for a while from clients where, specifically to your point, actually, like about, one app like Mail, you might want to increase the size of Mail, but you don't want to change your whole screen resolution. So they're getting better with understanding what people really want and allowing for that. And it's a great sign that the Mac OS can do that. For lots of years, we've been moving things more into like frameworks and doing things in repeatable ways as opposed to like reinventing the wheel with our interfaces, for example, like in each app. Vendors have been encouraged to like use Apple's methods so that when Apple puts out a feature like, you can adjust the text size, the app can support it without needing to do a whole lot of extra work. So that's a nice benefit, I guess, of the kind of health of Apple's app ecosystem.
You don't necessarily have to have problems with your eyes to want to use this feature. And it's not like you have to dip your toe into the accessibility window. It's an easy add-on for Control Center. And one of the things where I find it most useful is I'm using a couple of web apps where I'm following a couple of forums. So anytime you're using a web view of something, inevitably, because it's not optimized for iOS, it's just, a snapshot or a live page view of the web. Those text sizes can potentially be smaller. And the brilliance of this is you can customize it on an app-by-app basis. So that's what I love about this. You could just dial it in. And it's a great thing to show your client. It's an easy win. So a couple weeks back, Apple released MacBook Pros, and they also talked about HomePod Minis that come in multicolors, new AirPods, and then this feature of Apple Voice Music or something like that.
Apple Music Voice Plan.
Right. And they were touting the features of how, you could use Siri in all these different ways, to tell it to do this and to do that. I don't know about you guys, but Siri's crappier than ever. I mean, with voice dictation, I just can't get over how bad it is. And it hasn't gotten any better. It's a live thing that they should be improving upon. We talked about how bad it's been for years, and it just continues to be crap.
Imagine if that was, Steve Jobs from 10, 15 years ago on stage announcing the feature and telling, telling, Apple Music to play a certain band, and like there'd be a different band that would play, and he would just like throw the HomePod across the stage or something. But like, I saw the same thing when I'm watching the announcement, Apple Music Voice Plan. What is this? Why is it called that, first of all? Why do we need a different plan just for voice? And Siri is already built in, and, to your point, for better or worse, you can ask Siri to do whatever you want, play music or whatever. But I realize that, of course, this is designed to be more limited. So you have to ask for a specific song. You can't, or a specific playlist or genre or whatever. Like, I'm not sure, really quite why that limitation allows them to charge less. But I guess it's just kind of a more limited, casual way of listening to music. The other thing you don't get is lyrics. And I have to say, I really like
reading the lyrics of songs, like songs that I like, where the lyrics are meaningful. I like reading the lyrics, because it's an easy way to be able to know, just get more information about the song. If I really like a song and I read the lyrics, I might feel differently about it. And that's not part of this plan. Lyrics are specifically excluded from this Apple Music plan.
I can't tell you how many songs I've learned the lyrics to and go, wow, I've been singing that wrong for 20 years.
Right. I mean, it's a nice thing to have built in, just to, and it also tracks the song, which is really cool. Like for most songs, I mean, for some, I think it's just a scrolling paragraphs kind of thing. But for most songs, I think it actually shows the lyrics in time with the music. You can scroll up and down. You can tap on a certain phrase of the lyrics and have it actually jump to that point in the song. Like, it's a really robust interface. I'm really impressed with it from, I think, maybe iOS 13 or 14. Wouldn't want to be giving that up. And I guess there's a few other things you don't get with that voice plan. But I do think that they're just trying to give you like a cheaper way, maybe competing with Spotify or something for some of the low end.
Hold me close, Tony Danza.
Tony Danza, yeah.
I just had to say, the Creedence song, "There's a Bad Moon on the Rise"?
Sure.
My friend, and I'll never forget this in high school. He used to think it said, "There's a bathroom on the right."
Yeah, that's
exactly. Cracked me up every time.
That's awesome.
The song by Otis Redding, "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay." I knew somebody who thought the lyrics were "sitting on a doppel of hay." Whatever that is.
Right.
So, Sam, you went all in, right, on the Apple subscriptions, didn't you?
I had no plans to do so, by the way, but I got roped in, of course. But because I forget where Apple was promoting it to me as usual, but I did AppleOne Premier because I had Apple Music for Family, which was $15 a month. I had Apple TV Plus, which was $5 a month. And then I had an upgrade to my iCloud storage plan, and that was another $10 a month. So I was paying $30 a month. So at that point, AppleOne Premier is $29.95, and it has Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Arcade, iCloud Plus, News Plus, Fitness Plus. It's got a couple of extra features along with what I was already paying for. I didn't really feel like I needed Arcade necessarily, but it came with it, so there you go. And I have yet to try out the Apple Fitness Plus, but since I was paying that price anyway, it was an obvious no-brainer for me to switch to AppleOne Premier, so that's what I did. I'm hoping to use actually the Apple Fitness Plus because I haven't been to like a gym and it's going to start getting cold up here in the Northeast, so I can start using that for indoor functionality. But I think you use that, don't you, Jerry?
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. Rip guy like you, Sam, it might be too simplistic, but for a flabby guy like me, an old guy, yeah, it motivates me to go down there and do a little bit of, either core work or some strength work and all different types of specialty things you could do for exercise. I can't say enough good things about it. It's terrific.
You're not an AppleOne subscriber yet, are you?
No, I'm just doing the Fitness Plus, and I just unsigned. I had been an iTunes Music Match guy for years and years, and I just didn't re-up for that, and that's only like $25 a year. So that was like super cheap, but I've got everything in high res these days, and I'm using a couple streaming services. I'm using one from Europe called Qobuz, fancy pants thing, high res music, and I'm also using Tidal, which I really like a lot. I'm the guy who said I don't understand these streaming services. I still enjoy having my own catalog of music that's on my Synology server. So when Armageddon comes, I still have music to listen to. And I don't have to rely on Tidal because the Tidal servers blew up from some Russian missiles or something like that. I'm definitely paying the man. I'm just paying different men. Where you're paying. Yeah.
Just one. Yeah. I was actually excited about the Apple News Plus because it's a good source of information. So that piece was actually very important to me. And then my son seemed to be excited about Apple Arcade. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up Apple News. So in your swipe left on your iPhone, what do you call that? It's not Control Center. What the heck's that? At a glance?
Today.
Schedule?
Oh, that's it. Today View.
Correct. Not Notification Center, not Control Center, but the left-hand swipe is Today View?
I think so.
I think
it took
okay.
me a minute to think of it. I think that might be it because it's right. Kind of weird. A weird
Let's
name.
Go with it. So I've got Apple News in there, right? And how many times has this happened to you where you see a story that looks like really interesting, it might be something about Kim Kardashian, that I must read, and you tap on this story, and because I'm not a subscriber, it just like brings me to the main Apple News feed, and I get so frustrated.
Yes.
Huh.
Has that
I haven't
happened to
noticed
you?
that. I'm a subscriber, so I haven't noticed that, but I have noticed that not every article can be read actually in Apple News. Like, some of them you scroll past the little subhead and it opens a web view. What is this? Other ones you'll see the story, but I can't read it. It's there in Apple News. I'm a paying subscriber of Apple News Plus. I see the subscriber edition badge, but then I tap on some articles and I don't have Washington Post maybe or something like that.
Well, here's one, Barron's. So something about no Snapchat for kids. I just tapped on the story and it goes, try Barron's 1 month for free. You're right. It's just an upsell to other subscription services.
Yeah, I thought I would be getting that stuff. Like, I kind of thought if a newspaper or magazine or whatever was in Apple News Plus, I guess, that if I subscribe to Apple News Plus, like, I would get that stuff. But apparently I have to also be a subscriber to some of them to be able to see their articles. And it's not always clear, which of those, like, I just don't know offhand which articles are going to be
right.
paid.
There was a service like that, right? Where you paid a flat fee and you had all these magazines at your access on your iPad.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point. There was a thing for magazines on the iPad.
Apple or someone bought and then it just disappeared. The industry went like, we just need to get rid of this. We need to make this go away. What can we do? Let's throw millions of dollars at them so that we can shut them down. So I recently worked with a client who had accumulated a lot of technical debt. I mentioned them on a previous show. They were running El Cap and running into browser issues. And then we were running into a situation where we needed to gain access to their iCloud account. Luckily, they had turned on two-factor authentication because they had a newer iPhone. One of the things we did was we were able to reset the iCloud password. And, often when we do that now with the current protocol that Apple has, it'll be something like enter your password to unlock your Mac. And then you have to enter in another authentication credential. And in this case, it was enter the passcode to unlock your phone. And the client was talking to me from the cell phone. We're going to go through this authentication procedure. And so here we go. We got 6 boxes. Enter in your unlock code for your phone. And she said, well, it's got some letters in it. And I said, well, no, it should be 6 digits. And she said, no, it's got letters in it. And I'm like, well, this would be the code you would use to unlock your phone, the 6 digits. And so she tried to enter a letter in the 3rd position, and the authentication window wouldn't take it. That started a long, long discussion that she was getting billed for this whole time. And she said, no, I have all my passwords in front of me. They're all written down on this paper. I know what they are. Sometimes Apple forgets them, and I have to create another one, but I know what they are. And I said, look, here's the thing. If we powered down the phone that's in your hand, I said, has that ever happened to you where you had to update your phone or you've ever slide to power off? I said, when you turned it back on, you should have needed to enter this code. She said, nope, never had to do that. Insisted. She said, I never had to do that. And so I'm thinking like, that's not right. How about when you got this phone, when you first got this phone, when you set it up, maybe you were there with your husband. Did he give you a number? She's like, no. I said, well, does your husband have an iPhone? She says, yes. And I said, well, maybe you used his unlock code. No. We're not those kind of people. and I stopped for a moment. And I said, no. There's nothing implied. There's nothing sinister about me suggesting that you'd be sharing a code like this. It would be perfectly fine. I was just
that kind of people.
I don't know.
Right.
I didn't understand. So we're kind of at an impasse at this point. We can't get access to the iCloud account. We can't reset the password because she doesn't know what her unlock code is. I just, was phrasing it different ways. I was using the Joe Saponari technique, trying to think of these different scenarios, just something to trigger a memory, 15, 20 minutes. And then finally she goes, oh, and there's this long pause and she goes, it's the X.
What?
It's the X. What do you mean it's the X? So she went on diagonals, 159357, and that was
Wow.
her unlock code. Well, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to get the biggest magic marker you can find, and on a separate piece of paper, write 159357 and write iPhone unlock passcode, because you're going to need this again.
Man, I can't believe you brought this up, Jerry. I had the exact same call today, just a couple hours ago, with this client who I swear took 20 minutes to find her iPhone passcode. And, for same situation, it was actually, in this case, it was slightly different. New Mac migration, signing into iCloud after getting the new Mac, the data migrated to the new iMac. And, she's prompted for her iPhone passcode. And I said, okay, go ahead and enter the 6-digit passcode. And she just total dead stop. Like, what do you, which code? What do I do? And, the code you use, well, it just opens on my phone. I said, I know, but every 2 days you have to put in your passcode, to just I guess, reconfirm you still know it.
I don't think that's the case necessarily.
No, I don't think so either.
All right. I'm looking this up right now because I told this lady this was the case.
Live while we're on the show?
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I'm pretty sure that it requires you every 48 hours. Yeah, if you haven't put in the passcode, it's going to require you to put it in.
You might be right. Damn it.
Yeah, and if you reboot the phone, it's going to require your passcode.
That definitely.
Right? We know
yes,
that.
Of course, of course.
All right.
It says when more than 48 hours have passed from the last time you unlocked your device.
Oh, interesting. So if you just keep unlocking with Face ID every day for, at least once a day for 2 weeks, it'll just keep allowing you to unlock with Face ID. It's only 48 hours of no unlock whatsoever, no Face ID unlock. Interesting. Okay, so I might have had that wrong. There's times, like you're saying to your client, Jerry, like, what this is. You get prompted for this sometimes.
Right.
But the context switch is difficult for people. When they're staring at a series of blanks arranged in a row, left to right, and they're sitting in front of their keyboard on their Mac.
Sure.
They don't. It's like you said, the diagonal.
She saw the keypad. She would make the X.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing is, like, if you have, maybe you have a keypad of like a telephone keypad in front of you, that's arranged differently, or a calculator or something. Those numbers may be in a different order. You have to kind of like have the phone screen. Like, I've noticed this with some of my clients, they don't know the numbers, they just know like the pattern. And that's what you're describing with the diagonals. So we tried on the computer, didn't get it. Try it again, didn't get it. Okay, now I think we're kicked back out. I forget. Let's go to your iPhone and try it. So now I'm having her actually try it on her iPhone. So she said, didn't ask me. I said, yeah, that's the Face ID thing. Try, block the sensor and unlock it. Okay, now it's asking me for the code. So she tries it, doesn't get it. Okay, then she's at try again in 1 minute. I'm like, all right, let's do something else. We'll go back to that. You'll get it. Tries it again on the phone, doesn't get it. Try again in a minute. Okay, now I'm like starting to sweat. I'm like, now her phone's locked.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. My problem too is, even though she was talking to me on the cell phone, I didn't want to lock her out of her phone.
Yeah, I didn't think that far ahead. I'm like, you're gonna, I figured she could unlock it. Like, how,
Sure.
She must unlock it all the time, So and then it's
every
like
48 hours,
right? But then it's like, try again in 5 minutes. I'm like, oh man, So now we're like, she's like, well, my kids are home. They might have changed it. I'm like, no, I don't think so. They would have needed. I mean, of course, they would have needed your old passcode, and they would have also needed, like, you would have needed to put in the new passcode before you unlocked it with Face ID for the first time.
I'm seeing this, Joe, for you as more billable time. The
longer
it gets.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and it's not my fault. It's like, you're kind of responsible for knowing your passcode as a client, right? I mean, it's like you kind of need to know that to use your phone. So it's implicit that, like, you would have that number.
It's in your email when you schedule the appointment. They're supposed to have this stuff ready.
I spell that out. I do. So she was fine, but she was just kind of like, I don't know. Maybe they changed it. Somebody changed it. Could they have hacked me? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
so,
I got hacked.
It goes all the way down this list. And it's like, well, finally, she just realized that she had 2 of the numbers backwards or something. Like, I don't know how this happened, even, because, again, you have to enter this password from time to time, But so we got through it. But yeah, it was a very similar situation. And even worse because I locked her out of her phone at a certain point. So yikes.
Well, how did she come up with it at the end?
She said something about how it, my birthday, my sister's, 2 of my sister's birthdays or something. Somebody told me I should change it every season and blah, blah, blah. And I said, did you change it? I don't know. Maybe you changed it, and maybe you put the birthdays in a different order. Like, if it went from like youngest to oldest, she said, yeah, that's what I think I did. I think I went from oldest to youngest or something when I changed it.
Oh, okay.
Try that. So sure enough, she did get through, but did not expect this. And I don't know what to do about it now. I don't want to have to erase your phone. That's not going to be a good outcome.
Jerry does his voices on the cloud. Joe spins